So, how been ya? Welcome to the Black Country Craftsman's YouTube channel. This video is part 10 of the house renovation playlist, where I've purchased a 2-bedroom house to renovate for the rental market. If you'd like to find out more advice on renting houses and the things to look out for when you buy one, check out my other video, the Buy to Let Guide. So let's crack on and pick up where we left off. In the last episode, I'd finished fitting all of the base units and all of the wall units, so I'm now ready to fit the worktops. Right, now we're going to have a look at fitting the worktops. Now, I've put this one in position, first of all, basically to lean on as I was putting the cupboards on. But I'm going to leave it as it is. I've just checked to make sure we tight up against there and we square with it pushed up against that wall. First one we need to cut is this one. Now this one will finish so far out and we'll go straight to the wall. So the cut will be on this side of that one. So we need to do this one first. This is what we'll need to do the joints on this worktop. Now, this one will run along the length of the window. So the joint will be roughly around there, so the other worktop can attach to it. Now, this is a typical jig that you use to cut the joints out. Obviously you've got an angle there, obviously a nice straight edge. You've got your router with a 1/2 inch straight cutter that I've already popped in there. And you also need one of these, which is a guide that attaches to your router. Now this guide slots in this groove here and basically moves along with the router, and the guide enables you to do a nice, clean, straight cut. So we'll attach this to the router. Now all we do with this one, obviously all routers are different. Just lift that latch and pop that in there, and that attaches itself to the router. Okay, now guide's now fitted. Another thing you have to check before you put the jig in position is the depth, because what you'll do is you will take a little bit out of a time, perhaps 10mm, then 20mm, 30mm. So you may need to do a few cuts. It's always advisable to do a few cuts. So you want to make sure it goes right the way through, so it completely cuts right the way through to the bottom of the worktop. Also as well, now this is very important, the router turns clockwise, so the blade will dig into the worktop that way. So when you always do these worktops, will determine whether you put the jig on the face of the worktop or you touch it to the underneath. Because if you were doing, we'll be cutting this side, so it will be on the face. Now if we were cutting a section out this way, the blade would be coming out that way, and when it comes out that way, it tends to flake and break away the edge of the worktop there. So you always need the blade to go into the edge of your worktop. So in the case if we needed to put our joint there, we would then have to turn the worktop over and then the jig would have to be fitted on the underneath, where your final cut would then be on the surface of the worktop. So yeah, I always get nervous when that's the case, but yeah, that is what it is. And that's the reason that'll determine where you put your jig, whether it's on the top or the bottom. Now on these jigs, there's lots of F's, which is the front, and there's lots of numbers. Now, these numbers indicate the width of your worktop, okay? Now, they do start from 600. In our case, we've got a 620 worktop. So, that's where your peg will need to go. Okay, very quickly, we've got a pin there, pin there, pin there, and of course our pin at 620. Have a quick look underneath. Pins are right the way through. Have a quick look at this one. Right tight, all up against the worktop. Now, set the rotor cutter to take roughly 10mm out of the worktop. Then carefully run the rotor through the jig as shown. Okay, first little section taken out. All we need to do now is slightly lower the rotor, so we take another 10 to 15mm out, and do that till you go right the way through to the worktop. Okay, there we go. Nice, crisp, clean, straight cut. As I referred to earlier, this is what happens to the end. As you can see, it's all frayed, it's broken away. And that's when the rotor isn't going into it, it's coming out. So that was on that side as the rotor came out. So yes, always remember when going into the edge of the worktop, make sure your cutter always enters clockwise into the worktop. Okay, we need to now cut it to size, so measure the length of the worktop. And I've just gone just under 20mm over, as a little bit of an overhang. Okay, place the worktop, it's already cut down to size, on top of the existing one we left in. The reason I left this one in is precisely what I will show you now. What I've done with the other offcut, I've placed it under the worktop there, so that worktop is completely level. So with, and I've spoke to you about it before, the angles of the walls are never 100% right angles or perfect. So by doing it this way, and by literally running your pencil mark down there, with that on top of the new worktop you need to cut, making sure everything's all in line, tight up to the wall there, perfectly in line there, mark it, and you've got your perfect cutting line ready for when you rotor this one. Okay, we've now transferred the line onto this worktop. Again, going back to what I said previously, with the rotor going into the worktop like that, it will come out like that and fray all this side. So what we need to do, I need to mark and do a mark down there, following that line. Same with the other side. We need to flip the worktop over and do the cut from the other side.
As you can see, the saw is at a 90-degree angle and the line transferred is slightly out. So it's important to transfer the line as I've shown to make the joint work. As the corner of the room isn't a perfect 90-degree angle.
Okay, I've transferred the line from the other side. So what I plan to do now is get one of the shelves, make sure they measure identical, that side to that side. Basically, what I'm doing now is transferring the same line, or the angle of the same line, further up. The reason I'm doing this is you've got one chance with this cut and you've got so much to play with if you make a mistake, or if that little piece there, just don't forget you're cutting, your final piece is cutting through the surface of the worktop. So this cut, you've got one chance of it. So you're giving yourself a few options. If you make a mistake and it doesn't quite work out, you've always got another few chances before you have to cut it down. Okay, jig on, all in line. What I've done with this piece here, I've screwed a little piece of wood, attaching it to the piece that's going to fall off. So basically it will be held in position just as it gets to the very end, just so it doesn't break off and damage what you're trying to cut.
Once again, set the cutter to 10mm depth and run it through the jig. Continuing to lower the depth of the cutter to just before it goes right the way through the worktop.
Okay, all cut. Me fitting this piece of wood through the handle, through the hole, has prevented this piece of wood from come crashing down and probably stopped it from damaging our routed cut edge. So always a good tip to do that. Okay, got a lovely joint there. I'm happy with that. Right tight up to the end there. Repeat the same process on this side, cutting it out there and doing the mail up to it with a little piece there. Right, the worktops are now all cut to size. Really pleased with the joints. Joints have come out really good. Now we need to router the underneath of the worktops so we can fit the bolts to basically fix and pull the worktops together. Okay, inside underneath the worktop, just need to put a mark there. Basically a mark there so we can get the 3 connecting bolts in an area where we can work. Okay, what I have to do now is there the mark there and there in the inside. We need to try and fit these 3 shapes. You've got your pegs there, so push those pegs in. Okay, so we need to set the router up and router about halfway down on the worktop and router those 3 sections out to create the holes for the fixings to fix the worktops together.
By taking a section out at a time and finishing cutting it all out, roughly about 20mm depth, which is about halfway on the worktop. Check the bolts fit. Put the worktop back in position and mark the adjacent worktop to match where you need to cut out for the other bolts. Set the jig up the same as before.
Okay, both joints now routed up, ready for the bolts. Now before we actually put the worktops together, we need to cut the hole out for the sink. So that's just a case of getting the sink out, marking it up where we need it in. It's much easier to cut the whole, well, the worktops in one piece, and you can transport it rather than it being in situ as there's obstacles in your way. So yeah, we'll do that before we put the worktops together.
So, both mason mitre joints cut. So please join me on the next episode where I'll be cutting out the worktop for the sink, fitting the edging strips and joining the worktops together. Okay, if you've enjoyed this video, smash us a like, drop us a comment, and if we can help you, we will. And please subscribe to give us a little support. Also, please check out our other videos, as we've got quite a few out now. You may find something that might just help you out in the future. I'm the Black Country Craftsman. Don't forget to tell your muckers. Learning how to fix these problems yourself is cheaper than paying someone else to do it for you. Thanks for watching.